Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Jason Norton. Jason is a very prominent fixture in my life as the pastor of the church I go to. He's also a former Army Ranger, has served on a SWAT team as well before finding his place in ministry. Today we're going to talk about the lessons he's learned in the Rangers, about full commitment, perseverance, and truths that he's learned throughout his path that apply to leadership and business. Let's talk to Jason. Drop in the untold stories of industry leaders, influencers, and insights on future innovation. I'm John Davidson, and this is the DLC Drop Podcast. All right, welcome to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. It's my pleasure today to have Pastor Jason Norton here with me. Jason, I just so appreciate your time to be here. I've had a few moments throughout this podcast, different episodes where I have somebody very special who's had a big impact in my life. Mm-hmm. I've had the CEO of my first office job. Wow. I've had some of these esports leaders who had a significant impact, taught me a lot about how to operate in this industry. Mm-hmm. But you may be the person who has more consistently had a positive impact in my life, as I am sitting in your church just about every Sunday.
Amen.
And so, I really want to have you on because you have had this positive impact. I've learned a lot from you. But you also have an incredible life story where you've learned a lot of things. Yes. And so you've come through the Army Rangers. Mm-hmm. You've been an assistant leader in the SWAT team. Mm-hmm. And pastor at a Cowboy church now.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, what the heck's a Cowboy church?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me. I was excited to come here. I'm kind of new to all this kind of stuff. So what is a Cowboy church? The Apostle Paul says, I become all things to all men, so that by all means a few might be saved. So Cowboy church is a mission field that you don't have to get on an airplane and take off. It's the working cowboy or the rodeo cowboy, and obviously everybody is welcome. Sure. But it is a target, just like any business would have a target, goal, or aim, or mission, or vision, and that's the Cowboy church. To reach the working cowboy that's usually actually out in the field tending cattle on a Sunday.
That's right. Yeah, when I tell people, I go to this Cowboy church, and people are a little surprised I am maybe the furthest thing from a cowboy.
I think they might say that about me as well.
Yeah, and so we've got a rodeo arena on site. Mm-hmm. I tell people, these people aren't dressing up, they're coming from work.
That's right.
And they've probably been working since sunrise that morning.
Yeah, we've even had I knew it was a different draw of people when first service, starts at 8, and I saw a group of guys come in, about 8 of them. They just got done hog hunting all night, and they were in their overalls. I was like, this is definitely a different fishing lure to fish for men. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I want to get into a little bit later in the episode of, specifically how you got into this role. Sure. But take us back to where this journey started. All the way, from what I understand, you started boxing at a relatively early age.
Yeah, my father owned a karate dojo studio. I mean, there's a few different names of it. And he was obviously a black belt, and so I started in Taekwondo at an early age. And then when I got to the teenage years, when that testosterone kicks in and you're not satisfied with the little taps here and a little tap there, or doing a form or a kick or what they would call like a paper punch, where you're just learning the technique and the form, but you have not really put it to the test in like a gas station parking lot or
you're ready
at a
to put
school
some power
or something
behind
like that.
it. Yeah.
Well, I believe you're always wondering if you could do something if somebody attacked you. So my dad exposed me to kickboxing, and I was on the competition team. And I remember my first fight when I was 15 years old. I remember immediately learning the difference between sparring and fighting. Sparring is you practice your stuff on me, I'll practice my stuff on you, but kickboxing, whether you're ready or not, here it comes.
Wow.
And so at 15 years old is when I first did full contact kickboxing.
What was that first time going full contact like?
It's real strange to fight somebody older than you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 15. The guy I fought was older than me. And this sounds kind of funny, but at 15, I didn't have no hair on my chest. But the guy that I fought had full hair on his chest.
Yeah.
And he was an older man. So you have to do a psychological switch that you would assume you're going to fight somebody your own age. And,
Sure.
And you see a grown man get in the ring and you're going, wait a minute, I didn't sign up to fight a man.
Your dad signed you up to fight a man.
So apparently, I'm like, oh, well, here we go. And the first time my dad prepared me really well. I mean, he started having more people spar me and hit me harder so I wouldn't be shocked when I got in the ring. But
sure.
The first time, a man hits you as hard as he can and you didn't duck, it can be very frightening.
Yeah.
You immediately, I don't know how other people are. I immediately wanted to be the person in the bleachers eating the Frito pie. I was like, this is not the position I want to be in.
Yeah.
But then, your upbringing and raising, my dad, my family taught me how to, if you're going to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually you get 2 or 3 more times and you finally go, I need to do something about this or he's going to really hurt me. And so then you learn how to fight back.
The DLC Drop podcast is sponsored by Ice Shaker. I've been a huge fan of this brand for the past few years, ever since I met founder Chris Gronkowski. What I love about this product is the brand story, the functionality, and the customization. Ice Shaker is a Shark Tank company invested in by Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez, owned by NFL players Rob Gronkowski and Chris Gronkowski. I love using my Ice Shaker anytime I'm driving to the podcast studio, I'm going skateboarding, or I'm at the gym. No matter what I'm doing, it just does a great job of keeping my drinks hot or cold. The customization for Ice Shaker is something that's super unique. You can get any name, just about any logo engraved onto your Ice Shaker and delivered to you within just 3 to 5 business days. Get your own DLC Drop branded Ice Shaker at iceshaker.com/DLC Drop. Save 20% on all Ice Shaker products with the discount code DLC Drop. At some point, did you get this bug of like in skateboarding, for example, like the ability that skateboarder needs to have is that when you fall, you slam so hard, you get back up.
Yeah.
And you can't, I remember telling somebody this one time who was confused as to why I fall on concrete for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You may be confused as well.
Yeah.
But I said, the feeling of rolling away from a trick on my skateboard, I value that more than I'm scared of breaking bones.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes look at my son and I think, I wonder if he'll be a skateboarder.
Yeah.
And all these kids, like when they're little, they slam really hard.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets up and says, I'm okay. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
there's something there.
Yeah. He just learned something.
Yeah, exactly. So my question to you is, okay, you have that experience the first time. Were you then like, man, I want to get back in this ring? Or was it your father saying, get back in the ring?
Well, when I came home, because I broke my nose, I didn't, he broke my nose.
Yeah.
And broke a couple of my ribs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I lost it in decision, my first fight. And I mean, that kind of comes with the territory. Like you didn't want to fall, but when you fell, it was expected that to get better, you're going to have to fall. You're going to have to get hit.
That's right.
You're going to have to do the scary things to get through the wonderful things. And so when I came home, my mom was doing our laundry and she saw my towel that was just all bloody, and I didn't know it, but she called the karate school and said he will not fight anymore. Wow. So I had to wait a little bit longer till I got a little older before I could continue fighting. I did still competitive martial arts tournament fighting, but it's not like full contact. That's totally different. And then I waited till I was a little older to do that.
And so you went through your teenagers and then you joined the Army. What age was that?
Let's see, 96. So I was 20 years old.
Okay.
Had to do quick math there.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I was 20 years old, 1996, March 1st, and I joined the United States Army.
And was that something that you always had in mind to do? I believe that your father...
Yeah, my father was in the Army. My stepdad was a Marine. My papa was a frogman in World War II in the Navy. My brother was in the Army, 82nd Airborne. Some other families were in the military as well.
Yeah.
But I was told, don't go in the military because, they said you're smarter than that. You're just going to delay your life, and for some people in the family said that. And I actually was going to college, but I had a serious temper issue.
Yeah,
and I knew that if I did not get that under control, I'd either be in the penitentiary, I'd get in trouble, or I'd be hurt, or I'd hurt somebody.
Sure.
It's one of those things when you have a problem, but you don't have the self-control or discipline to actually fix it.
Sure.
And so I was at home in my apartment after getting an argument with my boss, who blamed me for something that I didn't do. And I told him, I quit. And that's about the third time I blew up. It was obviously a lot more colorful than what I just said, but
Sure.
I'm sitting at home alone in my apartment. I look up at the fireplace mantel and see a picture of my older brother. I had 82nd Airborne. I said, that's it. I'm going to go do it. And I went to a recruiter and talked to him, and that's where it started.
And you ended up as an Army Ranger. So how do you go from, I'm not familiar with the process. So
Sure.
You can fill me in. You go to the recruiter. How you ended up going to the Rangers, which is the elite force within the Army.
Well, you go to the recruiter, and they obviously no fault of them. They got a job to do. They have different slots they need to fill because they're told, hey, we need more of this person, more of this job. So you take an ASVAB test, and it's funny. They said, well, you have scored real high on your ASVAB, and there's only one job you can't do in the military. And I was like, what's that? And they said, a nuclear physicist. And I was like, what in the world is that?
Yeah.
And they go, they design submarines. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that anyway.
Perfect.
And so I saw a video about Army Rangers, and I told the recruiter, I said, I want to be an Army Ranger. And he literally looked at me and said, why? Do you even know what they do? And I was like, yeah, I saw a little bit about it. But so anyway, I didn't get a Ranger contract when I signed up. I actually got an 82nd Airborne, because I told him, I said, if you sign me up, if I can't be a Ranger, then I'll sign up for 82nd Airborne, because that's where my big brother's at.
Yeah.
And so I sign up, I get to basic training, and there's 3 soldiers in basic training in my company that have Ranger contracts. Well, 2 of them quit, and I knew that. So I asked my drill sergeant, I said, hey, can I have one of their contracts? And he said, that depends on how good you do. And he said, I'm not just going to give that to another person that's going to quit. So long story short, he gave me the contract, and I went to airborne school, which I was already headed there anyway. And then after airborne school, the Rangers come and pick you up, and that's when the games begin.
Yeah, tell us about those games. What is this like going through
Well, I
Ranger
don't know what
school?
it's like now. Well, at the time, you go through RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is basically a 3-week course of how bad you want it. There's obviously minimum qualifications you must fulfill and satisfy to make it. But we're at airborne graduation. There's like 200 and something soldiers graduating with brand new airborne wings, and everybody's so happy, and everybody's going to leave and go be with their families. And there's a deuce-and-a-half truck full of Rangers there to pick you up. Well, we go put our bags on there, and we don't get to see our families. I just waved at my family and said bye. And there's about 8 of us that jumped on it at the time. And then he pulled around the corner and said, get out of my truck. And he made us run all the way to the barracks. It was about 3 miles away.
Yeah.
And in our boots and, graduation, all this stuff. And that began the last thing they care about in the Rangers is your feelings. And that's where I did a lot of growing up. Basic AIT airborne was challenging, but RIP, they'll walk you out. At the time, it's different now, but at the time they'd walk you out and go, we had 80. Our final class had 80 starting the RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program. And they would take us out one morning and go, we're going to do PT until at least 4 of you quit. And so you're out there for hours just doing PT, physical training.
Hey, quit, please.
Yeah, exactly. Hurry up, would you please? But everybody's so excited that it's new, that it really hadn't set in yet, but eventually they will definitely. What I experienced in the Rangers is you have to have a level of physical fitness, you have to have a level of competency, but you also have to have a level of mental strength. And they will constantly mess with you just to see if you're going to quit.
What are some of the ways that they do that?
Lie and say that somebody stole something out of the CP when nobody did. And then just use that as an excuse to punish you. There are some things that probably couldn't even be listed on this podcast.
Sure.
Nothing criminal, but a very bad taste to be speaking over a microphone. A common one would be go on a run in the morning, and you're running. They say, okay, we're about to be done. And then we run into the complex, and then they keep running, do that whole entire run again. So they'll keep making you think something's about to be done, and then yet it's never done. And what it does, though, it's actually pretty smart. What it does is it gets you to where you are totally out of your feelings, and all you're going to do is obey orders. No matter what. You're just going to do what you're told. And so out of the 80-something, we ended up graduating like 23.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a big attrition rate.
What was the most challenging thing you had to go through in that process, as far as like whether you're swimming with a rifle above your head or you're doing these other things?
The suffering. I actually wrote a poem. I wish I could find it, but I wrote some poetry when I had some quiet time, and I talked about finally being comfortable in the pain. And it's kind of a strange thing. Maybe an educated psychologist could explain it better to me, but I got to where I didn't feel comfortable unless somebody was yelling at me, punishing me, or letting me stay in suffering places.
Yeah.
When my family finally came in and picked me up from graduation that night when we went to the hotel, I slept on the floor because the floor was more comfortable than the bed.
Wow.
Yeah, so it kind of jacks with you a little bit.
I can think of how that would, as a soldier and in these very challenging environments, how that would aid you in staying alive and defeating the enemy.
Sure.
But what's that do to you when you're no longer at war?
Well, I was a peacetime ranger. I was alerted to go to combat 3 times, loaded up on the bird once, and then to Grenada, and they ended up canceling it because there's an aircraft carrier, from what I was told, aircraft carrier of Marines closer by, and obviously, military has to understand budget as well. Yep. So I never pulled the trigger as a ranger in combat, only in training. But what does it do to you? You get so used to being in an extreme environment. So when you come home to a family, as a young 20-something-year-old, and I hear some common woe is me type issue, and I turned into an idiot because I was like, I just slept in a swamp for 2 weeks. I didn't actually sleep. I barely slept, but we just operated in a Georgia swamp for 2 weeks, and you're going to tell me somebody was rude to you at work? And I was just like, ugh. And so I wasn't mature enough when I was a young man in my 20s. So what did it do to me specifically, to answer your question? It made me hard to be around. I felt, like I said, I felt more comfortable being uncomfortable. And then when I heard somebody else's version of that, I was just a butthole about it. Yeah. I was immature.
So how did you overcome that?
Well, I would always say the Lord, but the Lord does it through many different ways. And life repetition will teach you something. It will teach you, hey, the way you keep treating people's making them want to get away from you. Yeah. And so eventually you sit there and go, I need to calm down. I have got to calm down because I'm pushing everybody away from me.
Right.
And so I would say, how did I overcome it? The repetition of doing it wrong. And then also through the biblical principles that God teaches in His Word.
Yeah. What are some of those that are key to you that, helped with behavior change? Because I think that's something that all of us can.
Absolutely. And this one it's in the book of James, it became so crucial to me for surviving a moment. I tell people, if you ever want to pray for me, pray for my initial reaction. Because my initial reaction can be immature, fleshy, destructive.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, how in the world are you a minister and you're like that? Well, I mean, if we read the Bible, Jesus Himself referred to two guys as sons of thunder. I mean, and obviously in the biblical times, that's, they had a temper. It doesn't justify a temper, but it does. God did create some people that are a little bit fiery. So in the book of James, it says, qualities needed in trials: be slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to wrath. So I was opposite. All three of those, I did the opposite.
Yeah.
I was quick to speak, quick to wrath, and slow to listen.
And a lot of consequences as a result.
Huge consequences. And words are kind of like bullets. Once you shoot them down range, you can't bring them back.
Right.
They've already hit the target, and it's already hurt people, and you can't bring them back. So that was, to me, like an anchor scripture. And to where something would trigger me, and I'd go, whoo, and I'd be ready to just get you.
Right.
And the Lord would remind me, be quiet.
That's always good advice.
Who wants to do that when you're angry?
Right.
So that's one of the ways.
I want to bring you back to a moment during the Rangers that you've shared with me before with your boxing.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it was a little bit more of a successful occurrence than the first one that we went through.
Story.
Yeah. Tell us about that one. And what you learned from it.
Sure. I forget, however, so often. At the time, there was 3 Ranger battalions, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Ranger Battalion underneath the 75th Ranger Regiment umbrella. And at the time, I'm messing with the table, sorry.
You're fine.
And it's called Ranger Rendezvous. And you would get together, and all 3 Ranger battalions would compete against each other in various events, all the way from running to road march to all the different types of soldier stuff. And one of the events was boxing. And I was like, hey, I've done that. Let me try that out. So you fight at the platoon level, the company level, the battalion level, and then the regimental level. And you can only progress if you win. So it took me 3 fights to get to the final match, and I was light middleweight. I was not 265. I was like 165 actually. Yeah. And the final match, it was funny because it's in a room full of Army Rangers. I mean, the amount of testosterone in one gym at one time was kind of comical. But so I was ready to have the championship fight. This guy I'm fighting has not lost either. So we're both meeting in the ring. He hadn't lost, I hadn't lost. And this dude is covered in tattoos. He doesn't come through the ropes. He jumps the ropes, flips over the ropes, and runs over to me and screams like, "Wah!" And I look at him, I'm like, he's really mad. And then I'm like, this one's not going to be as easy. Right. So it's normal, like novice type fighting, 3 1-minute rounds or 3 1.5-minute rounds with a minute rest in between. And my dad had come to watch me fight. And so they allowed him to be in my corner along with another trainer. And so we get to fighting, and at the first round, many fighters at the first round, they're just trying to figure each other out. Like, how do you fight? What is your game? What is like when you do a certain punch, I need to really pay attention to that because he's dangerous on the right and not the left. So the first round, you're kind of filling each other out.
When you're watching a UFC fight, there's a little bit of dancing, first of all. Cause
they're just testing each other out.
And
they'll just do little, they're fishing. They're just seeing what kind of man they're dealing with, even though they might have watched videos. But in Rangers, you don't have that luxury to watch video.
You're too busy running all the time.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as the guy jumps in the ring, that's all you know about him. And so he blasts me a few times, and to the point to where you can get hit and go, that's not bad. And you get hit again, you go, that hurt. you get hit again, and it will make you immediately want to quit. Like, I don't ever want in my life want to be hit that hard ever again. And he hit me a couple times like that. And I remember one time, a man's eyes will change when they give up. You can see it. A man's eyes will change right before he swings at you. Learn that over time as well. So when he hit me, I know I signaled to him, I'm done. You can have it. You can have it all
pie,
you want. Yeah, I was like, I'm ready to go to the stands and eat me a Frito pie and get a T-shirt and say, peace out. At least I made it to the last fight. I won 3. He can have the 4th. That was immediately my mentality when he hit me. And right when I was about to go down, I saw my dad. My dad's Cowboy. He's got his cowboy hat on. And I saw him, and he knew. He saw my eyes. He knows that because he's a fighter. And he saw in my eyes that I was done. And he hollered at me, don't you dare quit. And when he said that, like something inside of me just really got excited, and almost as if I can't disappoint him, and
well, also someone believes in you.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And like he wasn't telling you to get knocked out. He's telling you to win.
Absolutely. And it worked.
Sometimes somebody's belief in you can be a lot stronger than your belief in yourself and propel you.
That'll preach all day long.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That is so true. And that's why we need community. That's why we need people. And because you'll be having a low time. That's even described in Ecclesiastes. Well, we could just go on and on with that. But when my dad looked at me and he said, don't you dare give up, something clicked inside of me, and I lost my mind for about 20, 30 seconds, and I ended up winning. I was a regimental boxing champ.
How about that?
Yeah, and I was really, so all that getting whooped when I was younger ended up paying off, and it was good to be called champion for the first time ever in my life.
Now, was that experience of, almost quitting, basically being demanded not to quit, how has that influenced your life later on?
Well, it, whether we like, in my opinion, whether we like it or not, believe it or not, or know it or not, there is what I call Calvary principle. Before you experience a beautiful Sunday, a beautiful resurrection, a beautiful miracle of God, you have to go through Calvary. And right before it's about to get really good in life, in my opinion, it's going to get really bad.
Yes.
And so I was, in that moment, that was my Calvary moment, at least for the boxing world. And I was like, I'm done. I'm okay with you winning, and you dominated, you beat me. And when my dad said those words, that taught me later, and I learned that through the rest of my life. Right when things get really, really bad, now I know if you just hold on a little bit longer, something powerful is about to shift in your life. Yeah.
I believe that too, and I've experienced that. I've had some tough times, and I remember I was going through a particularly tough time for about a year. And that's a long time to go through a tough time.
Sure.
But I remember there were some days driving to work, having a particularly terrible experience.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden becoming encouraged, thinking, it can't get much worse than this.
That's exactly right.
And I think about that regularly nowadays. Just last week, I was having a tough time, just kind of mentally. What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? Etc.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, you know what? Like, get excited that the good time is coming.
Sure.
But don't give up. There's this image I was actually looking at this morning. There's this image, a cartoon of a guy who's like digging through a cave.
Yeah.
And he turns back around and he's like this close to all the diamonds he was digging for.
That's so true.
And so did you stop digging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people, I heard a story of somebody was swimming over a certain bay and it was foggy. And they had a boat obviously following them. I forgot. I probably shouldn't even say the story if I don't know all the details. But
we're this far. Keep going.
They were, yeah, exactly. Might as well go with it. They couldn't swim any further. Yeah. And they ended up getting in the boat, and the fog lifted 30 minutes later, and they were literally 50 yards from the shore. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
But that's how we are sometimes in life. If we're not careful, we'll give up right when everything you tried hard for is about to pay off. And then people right at the end say, nope, And there's scripture to back that up as well.
Yeah.
That's what gets me, is there's so many biblical principles that people are experiencing every day, and they don't even realize it. It's right in the Word of God. Sometimes for some people, it's right in the very Bible that they despise. I'm like, the answer's right there.
Well, talk a little about that. What are some? Because I think one of the things that's really amazing is there are these principles, there are these truths that benefit us.
Sure.
All through life.
Sure.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here is a lot of the truths that you're talking about in church every day, they help me in my business. They help me in my leadership. And I think that they can really speak to a lot of the audience as well.
Sure. One that we just talked about is God will lift you up in due time if do we still remember the if-then statements we learned in school?
Sure.
In due time, God will lift you up if you don't lose heart. So you're about to get lifted up, and then this whole world and everything that you know of it is about to come against you. Family, friends, circle of influence, job, personal life, emotions, physical issues, all this stuff. Just whew, if you just held on, you're about to be promoted to something, even be promoted in a new chapter of your life.
Sure.
But if you lose heart, the Bible says it's not coming for you now. You missed out on that. Man, you put in all that work. Imagine working, some people get paid, every 2 weeks or once a month. Sure. Imagine working, 29 days. And you quit right before you got your paycheck. That don't make no sense, but we'll do that many times in life, in different scenarios of life, and we don't realize what we're doing. Another one would be, God will not be mocked. Every man will reap what he sows. I love what my papa said. Jason, I don't care how many times you plant corn, you'll never get watermelon.
There you go.
It's about that simple. So what kind of seeds are you planting? And your words are seeds. So if you constantly talk against yourself and other people, well, that's coming back to you. Yeah. It's going to seed time harvest, especially living in a day like today. If we pull up to a McDonald's drive-thru or anything and it's not ready in less than 5 minutes, we're already then contemplating what's taking them so long. Right. And the good things in life take time. You plant a seed, then you cultivate it, you water it, you take care of it, and then the increase. Most of the beautiful part of the growing is underneath the ground. You can't even see it. So things are growing, things are happening and coming your way, but you can't see it yet. So then we quit right before it happens. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, one of the problems with our food is that we have done all these things to it so that it grows really fast. And now there's no nutrients in it anymore.
Absolutely. Nutrient, what do they call it? The soil's being depleted. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to take you through, rest of this career story really quick. So let's touch on a little bit. So next you went to become a patrol sergeant and assistant SWAT team leader. Take us through that, and let's talk about, how'd you get started at King's
Well,
Trail?
you don't get hired as that. That's obviously a promotion up to that. Yeah. So I was hired as a police officer first. Again, my dad was a police officer for 42 years. And military on your resume is just a good fit for being a police officer. So then became a police officer and in patrol. I stayed there the whole time. I was never a detective or anything, or a school resource officer or a bike officer, or motorcycle, none of that. Stayed in patrol the whole time, and then over time got promoted to corporal. And then over some more time got promoted to sergeant, patrol sergeant, where you supervise anywhere from 8 to 10 officers. Sure. And then the SWAT team came about when I was a corporal. There's a selection test for it, similar to the military, but kind of an easy way to understand it. When civilians need help, they call the police. When police need help, they call SWAT. Okay. Because they're more equipped. SWAT means special weapons and tactics. So they have special weapons that a normal police officer won't have. Sure. And they have special training and skills and tactics that a normal officer is not taught. Yeah. So that's where that comes about. So the normal day-to-day calls that an officer will take, all the way from vehicle accidents to a suicidal person. SWAT is a specific team that will go after a specific, what activates them is a dangerous person.
Right.
Yeah, there's like a threat matrix. Every agency does a little bit different. We filled out a threat matrix, so it made it justified and able to defend also, and justify in a court of law why were they even called in the first place. So SWAT team usually go after the more legitimately dangerous people.
Right.
Not people that talk trash. People that have proven they will pull triggers, they will hurt you, they're not going to do what you say, etc. Stuff like that.
What is that like? Just mentally stress when that's your daily job. I mean, I do some consulting, I host a podcast, I feel stressed out.
Yeah.
But no one's coming after me, and I'm not coming after them. Sure. Yeah. But, when you're talking about dealing with physical danger or these sorts of things, what is that like in your daily life? How does that manifest?
Well, our agency didn't have a full-time SWAT team, so the majority of my law enforcement career was being a patrol officer, corporal, and sergeant. And in the beginning, we were called maybe 2-3 times a month.
Okay.
Towards the end, it can be 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's progressed a lot. And what is it like? Well, we would get a briefing, beforehand of why we're going, what we're going for, what is the criminal history on this person. And after they get done describing this person to you, and you go, it is reasonable to think that you can go after this person and they kill you. So that is a sobering feeling. I don't know how to say this correctly. Experiencing those moments will help date night seem so much richer.
I feel that.
Yeah. So, obviously, I was a praying man at that time, so I would be in prayer and pray over the team before we went out, and thank the Lord nobody ever got hurt.
Yeah.
But it is it's a unique fear to kick open a door knowing that he's armed.
Yep.
And he's proven he'll do it again. So that's but you got 80 of your fellow trained brothers with you,
right?
And so that brings some confidence there, but still it just takes one bullet. Right. So it's a unsettling feeling, but after you're done, Calvary, remember that Calvary moment?
Yep.
You love life so much more afterwards, and it helps people get them out of a certain lifestyle. Many people want to see a bad thing about that, but that person you're going after is still a human being, and they made some bad decisions.
Yeah,
and I've heard personal testimony time and time again that it was that moment that they said, "I'm done."
Wow.
And it changed their life. So that's pretty cool when you hear somebody. And actually, I had one come back to the PD and thanked us.
Really?
Yeah, that's never on the news. But thanked us for shutting him down because he knew that he would have just kept going, and it only gets worse.
Well, sometimes you need that awakening moment, right, in your life where you're going a path. Sometimes you don't even realize how far you've gone down a path until you get smacked in the face with some consequences.
That's exactly right.
And sometimes the best lesson is the hardest one.
Yeah. Not fun, but it produces good fruit.
That's right.
Yeah.
So how long were you in this role before you became pastor of King's Trail or that?
Yeah.
I don't think opportunity is the right word, but that emerged in your life.
Yeah. I was a police officer 11 years before I resigned, became full-time pastor. But to kind of walk it up to that, when I was in the military, I got real close to the Lord. I had a powerful experience in a swamp. It was undeniable.
What was that like?
I was angry with the Lord. I was saved when I was born again at age 13, baptized. And then, grow up and, you're now a young man, maybe not grown. You might think you're grown, but I'm a young man now. And,
sure.
And I think, I was about 3 weeks out in the field, and it rained 2 of the weeks. And Rangers, they don't feed you. They just don't care. They don't care. I remember I went up to my sergeant, now a retired sergeant major, command sergeant major, and I remember the first time I went up to him. He was a team leader, and I said, "Hey, Sarge, I just like 2 days we hadn't ate. We're just still playing Army out in the middle of the Georgia swamp." I was like, "Hey, Sarge." He was like, "Yeah, what?" And I go, "When are we gonna eat?" He goes, "Did you eat last week? Shut your mouth and leave me alone." And I was like, what did he just say? And he was serious. So there's things I experienced in the Rangers that if I heard somebody else tell the story, I'd say you're either lying or exaggerating or both. Until I experienced it. I was like, no, this stuff is real. You can go a whole week and not eat. You can.
I hope to never find out.
Yeah. I found out later, even as a minister. But so I was in a swamp, and the Ranger chaplain gave me a camouflage Ranger Bible. And I didn't want it. I was like, "I'm already born again. Thank you, sir. No need. Go give it to somebody who needs it," which sounds like I really need it. If I say I don't need it,
sure,
even being a Christian. So he goes, "Well, you look like you seem to be a good young man." I said, "Would you take it for me?" And I was like, oh. And being the new guy in the Ranger Battalion, you're going to carry the weight. The new guy carries the most weight. And so I put it in there. So we're in a swamp, and everybody's asleep. Finally let them bed down to sleep. And when I say bed down, that means sit down and lean up against your rucksack, your backpack. And so now I'm pulling security, and you learn in the Rangers that as soon as you get a break, you need to doctor your feet, because that's the first thing you're going to lose.
Wow.
You have to take care of your feet. So I'm doing it one sock at a time, one boot at a time. And so I come across this Bible, and I'm like, man, I threw it on the ground. We had a little dry, sandy spot in the middle of the swamp. And I was mad. And I remember my papa, he said, "Jason, you can't intellectually understand the Bible. Flesh can never understand a spirit thing. It takes the spirit to understand a spirit thing." And that always stuck with me. He said, "You should pray before you open up the Bible if you want understanding of it." So I was like, "Lord, I don't even know if I believe in you anymore. I don't even know if I believed in you in the first place. But I think I kind of do, because when I said that, I got afraid. Like he's listening. Not like he's a daddy that'll whoop you or nothing, but just a reverent fear of something present." And so I did the this is silly, whatever, but I did it. I did the open up the Bible, close your eyes, and go, put your finger down on something. And when I did, I put my finger on the left page, and I heard a calm, strong voice, not audibly like we're talking, but just in my mind, say, 2 pages back. I went, wow, okay.
What was 2 pages back?
Well, I turned it 2 pages back, and I still went. And I did the finger thing and put it down. And that same voice says, "A little lower." And I moved my finger a little lower, and he said, "Open your eyes and read." And it's 2 Timothy 2:3. It says, "Therefore you must endure hardship as a good soldier for Jesus Christ."
Pretty spot on.
Yeah, I read that in the middle of a Georgia swamp as a soldier who was feeling sorry for himself and all that. Wow. So all of that, experienced all that, and then I had another, bad season in my life, and I was just angry, and so I was angry at God again. And my dad came up to me one time and goes, "Hey, we found this Cowboy church over there just east of Farmersville. You want to go with us?" I said, "No, thank you." And he goes, "I understand." He goes, "Would you go one Sunday for me?" I was like, "Why would you say it like that?" He goes, "Because I'm still your daddy." And I was like, "Yes, sir, I'll go."
Yeah.
And I went and fell in love with the Lord all over again. Simple preaching. I was a secret self-conscious issue I had growing up was it's strange, because I made straight A's, but my vocabulary was not vast.
Right.
And so if I went to a church where you have a PhD preacher that spoke with an intellectual tongue, I didn't know how to interpret half the words he said.
Well, and there's a kind of a church speak too.
Sure.
Right. So there's all these like words that nobody uses at any other time outside of your life. And so I've been in some churches where I'm sitting there, and I grew up going to church, so I kind of, inside baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
I can imagine people who did not, who anytime we feel confused, we might feel dumb.
Yeah.
And then we want to run.
Yeah.
From everything.
Yeah.
And so how is that inviting?
Well, yeah, it's exactly
right. How do you
right.
understand?
But and then later I learned that God made that man very educated to what?
Reach educated people?
Yes. So I kept going to churches that had fishing lures that wouldn't catch this fish. How did it change? My dad asked me to go, and I went, and I fell in love with the Lord all over again. And what I fell in love with, this preacher's in a wheelchair. He's rolling around the aisles. He wasn't up on those days. He'd come out in the congregation, and he'll preach half his message sitting next to you. And that was I was like, whoa. So
being comfortable.
But I enjoyed, and it was refreshing to hear simple talk. That I didn't have to bring a dictionary or a thesaurus to church to try to understand what he was telling me.
Right.
And so that started a new season in my life, and I got to where if the Lord wants to change something in your life, He'll cause you to not have a taste for it. You know how as you get older, your taste buds change?
Yeah.
Same with life. So I felt like the Lord was changing my taste buds for law enforcement. It did not taste good to me anymore. It wasn't for any reason. It's just now my taste was for the lost. My taste was to help people understand how the Lord now helped me understand how simple He is. It even says in the Bible about for we should not forget the simplicity of Christ. And so that started. We were going back and forth, Molly and I. My wife, going back and forth to this church, and I was like, you know what? How about I saw a Cowboy church in Van Alstyne, 104 South Main. I was like, that other Cowboy church, 45-minute drive one way. I said, you know what? Let's just go to church, that Cowboy church in Van Alstyne. We'll go eat lunch, come home, be lazy. She was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I head there. Tell me if this part's too long, and I can shorten it up. But I go there and listen to the message, and I'm like stuck in the seat. I can't move. I can move, but I can't move. It's very strange. And my wife comes to me and goes, you ready to go? I go, nope. And the pastor comes up to me and says, you good? And I'm like, I'm good. He goes, oh, we're about to shut things off. We're about to close the door and lock it.
Yeah, I'm about to lock you in here.
Yeah. And I said, man, I don't understand. I said, will you tell my wife to come back over here? Excuse me. And he sent Molly back over there, and she's like, what's going on? And it hit me. And I said this. I said, before we make big decisions, we should pray about it, talk about it, agree on it. I said, but I want to, people might not like this, but I said this. I said, can I pull out my husband card just one time? And you just say, yes, baby. Just, I support you, no matter what. And she was like kind of a little apprehensive on that part.
Maybe.
I said, please, just trust me and just say yes. She said, okay. I said, we're joining this church today. She goes, why? I go, I don't know, but we must be at this church. We have to stay here. And then a year later, I'm the pastor preaching in my own barn.
Right.
And now it's up, 800,000-900,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's the Cliff Note version of kind of how that all went out.
Well, I want to dive into one piece because it's something that has been extremely impactful to me. When I tell people about King's Trail, when I tell people about you, one of the things I enjoy the most about going to church there is that I don't know that I've met anybody who is more genuine than you about their life's calling. And from what I've heard you say and what I've experienced being around you, you are fully committed.
Yeah.
And there is not a lot of maybe this, maybe that. And I'm fully convinced that you believe every single thing that you say.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot to respect about that. And you shared a story with me about your hand tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like you to share that because I think it's inspiring. There's a lot to learn from it.
Sure. Well, I got a couple tattoos in the military, and specifically a Ranger one on my left forearm, and I got that as a reminder of it can always get worse. Just a reminder, sometimes we have pity parties for ourselves, and that was a reminder of me.
Sure.
You're not really having a bad day. It could get worse.
Yeah.
And so when I resigned from law enforcement to be a full-time pastor, it was substantially a lot less money. I'm talking about maybe a third.
Wow.
So it's like a paycheck.
With more kids too, right?
Yeah, exactly. More kids, more groceries. And at least 60 to 70 grand less.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole job for some people.
Yeah, it's like a paycheck got up and left the house.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, I was at a flag football game sitting in a lawn chair, and a guy came up to me. He said, "Hey, Sarge." And I guess he assumed I was still a police officer. And got to talking to him. Well, he's a contractor in the Middle East. And he was like starting to get elevated in that circle of influence.
Sure.
And he knew of me because I was his patrol sergeant at one point in time. And he's like, "What you doing these days?" I said, "I'm a pastor at a Cowboy church." And
I probably took him by surprise.
He's like, "What'd you just say?" So anyway, he said, "Man, you don't need to be doing that." He said, "How would it sound to drop $4,200 cash in your account every Friday? Tax-free because you're working outside the United States for a certain amount of months." I don't know all the tax stuff.
Sure.
And immediately, in my mind, because I'm a numbers guy, I went, "Wow, that's a lot of money."
Could pay some bills off.
Oh my gosh! I even thought I could buy 2-3 sections up in Oklahoma, and then put my cabin right in the middle of it, and tell everybody, "Good luck with life. I'll be out here." And I mean, just strong temptation.
Yeah.
And law enforcement goes through seasons where one minute they love them, and next minute they're trying to kill you. They're terrible. Next minute they're heroes again. And
yeah.
And so, I knew that I was not. If I kept hearing offers, I'll eventually take it. Because nobody likes to be hurting financially.
Right.
Nobody likes to. I mean, my wife and I, we used to go. We didn't ever worry about finances.
Yeah.
If we want to go eat sushi, we're going to eat sushi. We want to go watch a movie. We want to go do a 7-day cruise. We'll go do that too.
Roundinaires, right?
Yeah, we just go do whatever we want because we were financially stable. So when you sit there and go, you can't go to the grocery store until you need 3 things because we can't afford the gas money.
Right.
And then you keep getting those offers, and you go, and this is way before gas is what it is now.
Sure.
I knew that I was going to eventually say yes to it and be like, good luck, church. I'm going to go make about 200 and something grand a year tax free. And I knew that an immediate disqualification for most of those jobs is tattoos, where they're seen. And so I got a tattoo of an anchor honoring my papa, who's a frogman in World War II. He teams 2 and 4. He was a very bold man. And so kind of in honor of his boldness, and I knew if I didn't do something drastic that now they'll say no. Now they won't come recruit. Now they won't come ask. Yeah. And if I applied, they would say no because tattoos on my hand now disqualifies me. And I knew that was my Lot and his wife. Don't look back.
Right.
That was my pillar of salt moment, that I will look back if I didn't have something that would force me to just go forward. What's that story where they burned the boats?
Yeah. Yeah, Cortez.
There you go.
Yeah, so Cortez sailed to South America, and he knew that there was this native South American army of people just waiting for him because they'd been there a few times. And if they had the option to retreat, they wouldn't fight. Yeah. And so they arrived on the shore, and Cortez said, "Burn the boats." Yep. And the soldiers said, "What?" Yeah. And then they only had the option to move forward and succeed or die, literally.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my burning the boat moment, and I believe nobody will be successful in life until you're willing to burn some boats. You got to, because there's sometimes, everybody knows themselves to this point. There's moments in your life you can't trust your emotions.
Yes.
Well, I heard somebody say emotions are beautiful servants, terrible masters. We can use them to make decisions, but it should never lead our life. We must make decisions on right things, not emotional things. Yeah. And I kept being emotional.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why I did that.
So sometimes in life, there's a time where there's a way you should go. And if necessary, remove from consideration. Take steps to remove from consideration going back.
Sure.
There's something to be fully committed there. I don't practice this myself. I've been struggling with it in my business. Before I started doing the podcast and consulting and chairman of the Esports Trade Association, these things. I've been juggling things. Yeah, that's right. The balls are still in the air.
Yeah, there you go.
But I've heard it said, if you really want to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Don't entertain yourself with all of these things. And I've heard this multiple times, and I have yet to be transparent to really dive in and say, this is the thing, because I kind of feel like I'm figuring out what the thing is.
Sure.
But there's something in leadership and business that is, to your story, of full commitment.
Yeah.
Go for it, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a little boy, I heard, if you're going to do it, do it. If not, sit down and be quiet.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, fully give yourself to it. It says, study to show thyself approved. It says, a man's gift will make room for him. A man who's excellent at his work will be brought before kings. So there is something to be said. If you're going to do it, then give yourself fully to it.
Yeah.
So many times I believe people will, I'll try it out. That's fine. But if you want to succeed at something, you can't try it out.
Right.
You have to immerse in it to the point to where it becomes second nature. That's one of the beautiful things I did learn about the military, or first off, martial arts, boxing, kickbox, military, and law enforcement and SWAT. There's something to be said about muscle memory.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I train this way, and then the real situation pops up, I am now already engaging in it without even making a decision, because now it's muscle memory. But it's the same with that with our emotions. If we train ourselves to try it, try it. Somebody made me mad, quit. Try it. Somebody hurt my feelings, quit. You're training yourself to fail the rest of your life. You have to make your decision, cross the line, and then do it or die. My dad told me at the airport before I got on the airplane at the airport before I went in the Army. I remember is when everybody could go by the gates.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And now you can't even barely get past the front doors.
Drop them off at the curb.
Drop them off. And so anyway, right before I was getting on the airplane, everybody's loading up. He said, come here. I want to tell you something. He said, when you get up there to basic training and AIT and airborne and RIP and all this stuff, he said, I need you to do me a favor. Close your eyes. I was like, okay. I closed my eyes. He said, on the table, you have options. It's full of options, visual options on this table. And on that table is the option of quit. I want you to visually, in your mind, pick up that option and throw it in the trash. You either do it or don't come home. And that saved me countless times on just runs. Our final run to get our black beret, everybody's got a black beret now. Now the Rangers have khaki berets. But our final run, Sergeant Struker, which later became a minister, by the way, powerful guy, wonderful man. He was the RIP instructor. And he said, today, Rangers, all of you have passed the minimum qualifications to become an Army Ranger. Congratulations. But today we're going to go on a long, slow run. Attention, right face, double time. And we didn't stop till 17 miles. You had to do at least 5 miles to be a Ranger. He went 3 times that much.
Wow.
So whatever, I don't know who listens to this stuff or what, but whatever they're deciding to do, investigate, research, make sure you're making the right decision. But once you make that decision, once you cross the line, don't stop until you achieved it. Period. Don't stop.
I love that.
Yeah.
Got one more question for you.
Yes,
we ran out this episode, 5-10 minutes. We've covered a lot. We've covered your career path, some of these spiritual truths that are true across life in general, some really cool experiences that you've learned, perseverance, full commitment. If there was one thing that you would add to the people who are listening to this, who are typically business people that are everywhere from I'm in college and I'm aspiring to I've been in business for 20, 30 years and I'm seeking to learn new things from new people, what would you want people to come away from this episode with?
That's a great question. What would I want them to come away with this episode? If you're not committed, learn what it truly means to be committed. And if you are committed, don't run your family off. There's two ditches on the road. One is lazy people that always want to make excuses and always want to blame somebody else for not achieving a goal.
Yeah.
And there's other people who will achieve the goal and they will bulldoze their spouse, their children, and everybody that is in their way to achieve the goal. Both are wrong. We need to find that fine balance of being committed, but also learning how to love your family and friends along the way, and you don't run them off because your commitment is so intense.
Yeah.
Got to learn how to relax too.
I feel that. I could learn a lot from that too.
me too. I'm saying that one from experience. Because I've run some people off.
I think there's something too just popping in my mind. This is another thing I appreciate about what you say in church, and I hear from you a lot, is you're not sharing things like you've got it figured out.
No way.
And you're telling everybody else to be like you.
No way.
I hear a lot of things that you're saying, I'm talking to myself at the same time. I just feel moved to share this with all of y'all, but
yeah,
I need this just as much, if not more.
Exactly. There's only one that's perfect. That was Jesus. And there's not going to be any more perfect like him. Everybody else got issues. Everybody else trying to figure it out.
Join the club.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I so appreciate you being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Lord willing.
Thank you for joining me today on the DLC Drop Podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the DLC Drop Podcast. This podcast is part of the Esports Future I Podcast Network and produced by Innovation Media Enterprises. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review.